Hello fellow grower and welcome to my channel, The Late Grower. The topic for today is about dragon fruit cuttings, particularly on how to identify which side of the cutting should be planted in the ground. So which is the top and which is the bottom portion of the cutting. Sorry for the noise. Now, in my case, I received my first dragon fruit uh, already rooted. So it's already growing. I just had to transplant it to a bigger pot. And it hit me when I received a question in one of my dragon fruit videos, particularly on how to identify which side to be planted. So I looked for other videos in YouTube and found out that so far, at least at this point, based on my search, I have not seen any video that shows how to identify which side of the cutting should be planted in the ground. So this video is for the beginners in dragon fruit uh, planting, cuttings in particular. So in order to identify the side of the cutting that must go down in the ground, you have to be familiar with how the cutting looks like. So in this case, you'll easily notice that the cutting has ridges on the side. Okay, and the ridges has this portion where the thorn comes out, and it is located on the rounded portion of the ridge. Now, from the bottom, starting at the bottom, you will see this indented portion of the ridge. This is the lower portion of the ridge, and then it goes up and finishes with the rounded portion where the thorns are coming out, and then we'll continue again with the indented portion, and then rounded off again towards the top. Now, the lower portion, this intended portion, refers to the bottom portion of the cutting. Okay, so that is how to identify. The thorns that comes out on the rounded portion goes to the top. Okay, so you just have to be familiar with the curve of these ridges. Okay, so that's one idea on how to identify the top portion of the dragon fruit. You see, if you received a cutting from a friend, just like in my case, I received most of these cuttings from a friend, it had no markings. So I put a mark on them, just like in this case. I put an arrow that shows where the top should be. Now I'm already familiar which side should go to the ground, but still I also still made a marking, an arrow that points where the top should be. Now, if you received your cuttings without any marking, that is one way of determining which should be the top. So in this case, as I mentioned, just look at the ridges. Okay, so the indented portion is the lower portion, and the rounded portion with the thorns growing should be the top portion of your cutting. Another way to determine the upper portion of the cutting is by looking at the shape of the cutting itself. Normally, the upper portion of the cutting is smaller than the lower portion, just like in this case. So, if the cutting has not been cut, such as this one has not been cut. This upper portion is smaller than the lower portion, so you can readily determine which goes to the top and which goes to the ground. Okay. To give you an example, let's look at this dragon fruit that is already growing. If you look at the base and compare it to the upper portion of this uh, stem, it is smaller. The upper portion is smaller than the base. So that is one way of determining which side of your cutting should go to the top. Now look at the stem that grew from this base. The base of this second stem is much bigger than the top. Okay, so that is another way of determining which side of the cutting should go to the top. The bigger base should go to the ground. Okay, so those are the two ways that can help you identify which side of the cuttings should go to the ground. Okay, uh, as an update, in one of my videos, I uprooted one of my dragon fruit cutting. It was, and just to check, I uprooted it. I uprooted this cutting last time, just to check whether it has already rooted. And this was planted in this pot September 13, 2017, and right now it is growing a new stem. So this cutting took about 6 weeks to start growing a new stem. So when you're growing dragon fruit cuttings, you have to be patient. Okay, so it will they will really take some time before they can finally root and grow stems. Okay, so just keep them in a shaded and dry area. Avoid too much water. Okay, so thank you so much for watching and hope to see you in my next videos. Bye bye.